And indeed, what I am very pleased to have the opportunity of talking about is some of the enterprise that's been going on in the discipline of chemistry in the last 2 years. It's work that's really involved all of my colleagues in chemistry, but in particular, Natalie Williamson, who's our Level 1 coordinator in chemistry, Simon Pike, who I'm sure many of you know, the plant in the room, and John Willison, formerly from CLPD and now in the School of Education. And my role as head of chemistry hasn't always been that of the stockman, but often I did have to pull the whip out and set it cracking a few times. But one occasion I did feed the mules a few carrots as well to drive them along as well. The perspective that I want you to take about how we've approached all of our teaching, particularly our first year courses, is I want to emphasise the language of chemistry. Now, I know this is not unique to all. We all teach content at university, but specifically chemistry, it's had a long, long history. It's been recognised for close to 300 years, and it's very well highly structured at secondary school. And people either come to university to study science or an associated discipline with either knowing the chemistry language or not. And it's very, very important that we distinguish them. So that, for a long time, has made us think that what's important as soon as they come into first year is the delineation whether a student has a chemistry background or not. Indeed, what we think is that it's more important for people to teach chemistry that we think about the student's background, where they've come from, rather than about where they're going. So this was one of my first teaching duties at the university a bit over a decade ago. I was teaching a class where we didn't have that distinction. And I was teaching a chemistry class, which was called what was it called? A&R, yes, Agricultural Natural Resource Chemistry. And I had in that class students who had never done any chemistry before and students who had done International Baccalaureate Chemistry. And it was just impossible to teach that class. So since 2002, we've actually structured 2 streams of Level 1 chemistry, we call our flagship course, Chemistry 1A and 1B, run over 2 semesters, and also this other course, Foundations of Chemistry A and B. And the distinction is, how did they go at Year 12 chemistry? And in old SACE, it was a score of 13 out of 20, and with new SACE, we've worked out that it needs to be about a C+. So that's really been our thinking. Now, unfortunately, there needs to be a bit of context here, and until fairly recently, 2008, the curriculum of Foundations effectively mirrored our mainstream course, and that when students did first semester and they completed, if they did reasonably well, so that they'd shown some aptitude, we'd sort of offer them the opportunity of switching across into second semester Chemistry 1B, and that enabled them an opportunity of perhaps progressing into second and third year chemistry, so they, if they so desired. The Foundations content, in reality, hand on heart, we cannot say that we covered everything that a Chem 1 student covered, but we pretended that it did. And that was a lie that hurt us heart when we fell asleep. We had very many restless nights. Simon and I have discussed this for a long time. So in 2009, when we actually redeveloped completely the Chemistry 1A and B course in line with new SACE chemistry, we decided that it was time to rewrite the Foundations curriculum, and that's what we did. So what we actually realised was that we cannot just teach the same amount of chemistry in 2 semesters to a foundation, somebody with no chemistry background to somebody with a chemistry background. And we decided we're going to have to take longer to do it. So we decided there and then that we were going to introduce a summer course. So just a few months ago, we ran our first summer course, Foundations 1S. By doing that, that enabled us to extend the amount of time we had to teach the language of chemistry to these foundation students in semester 1 and semester 2. And with that relaxed amount of teaching, we decided that we could take a slightly different approach to being able to deliver that content. So I think I've covered everything on there. The other advantage that we thought here is that this enabled students to come to university, try some chemistry, which perhaps they got turned off. Perhaps some schools don't offer chemistry at year 11 or year 12, or they had bad teachers or whatever, they just were turned off by it in general. We felt that we're such good teachers, and I'd maintain that we are, that we could turn a student on. We could convert these so-called late bloomers and turn them onto a career in chemistry ultimately. So what we did was a couple of years ago, we set up a working group. In my discipline, I love running working groups, run them all the time. And we decided to look at this idea of process-oriented guided inquiry learning, so the acronym POGLE. We actually got funds from the DVCA to develop some example courses and to run a pilot project in 2011. And we developed an example 2-hour lecture, and we ran some focus groups here. Now, at this point here, I need to say, you need to ask yourselves, or you need to ask me, what the hell is this POGLE thing? So POGLE has been around a long time. There is a huge amount of literature on just how good it is. It was developed in the mid-90s, developed in the USA for, it happens, teaching general chemistry. There's a website devoted to it, but it's been extended into a whole range of disciplines, not just science. You can teach anything, arguably, with a POGLE approach. So what does it focus on? It focuses on core concepts, encourages, it's all up there, deep understanding of course material. Of course, this is important when we're thinking about teaching chemistry as a language. It involves higher order thinking skills, develops critical thinking, problem solving, and communication through cooperation and reflection. So many of the ideas that we've already heard about this afternoon. In the lectures, it's all about a student-oriented strategy where students work in small groups. So we developed this this test. We ran it with our focus group. The students seemed to enjoy it. They wanted more content to be explicitly delivered by the lecturer. So sort of like what we had earlier on where with the, who was that? Matthew was talking about that, delivering some content in the lectures and then asking students to vote. Here we could deliver some content. We asked them to discuss in a small group. And we also found out that 2 hours is too long, which is why I asked you about how you got away with doing 2 hours. Come on. All right, how do the lectures work? This is a large class. We're now up to 450 in the class. We're using the Braggs Lecture Theatre. Inside the lecture, we have a lecturer and 2 teaching assistants. We deliver some content, and then we break out into these POGLE sessions, which involves a series of critical thinking questions, and the students are encouraged to work in small groups to discuss these ideas, and therefore, with that discussion comes the practice of the chemistry language. And we find that this works very, very well. So as it got there, 5 to 10 slides of content are delivered, the breakout and the 3 academics effectively floating around the lecture theatre, trying to respond to any queries that might come up, and we'll do that for about a 10-minute period. Now, I've actually got some examples here. I don't know whether we've got time to... 2 minutes. So I have no time to go through it today, but of course we will do this in the breakout session. So one of the examples, the atomic nucleus, is what we use in one of our semester A lectures, but also there's an example on how to learn the rules of Australian rules football. So you can see it does not have to be related to learning a particular scientific content. Written for an American audience, yes. All right, what are one of the... we ran this last year. The outcomes, here's the comparison of grades from 2011-2012. We see markedly significant improvement at the higher grade levels. We are seeing more distinction and high distinction grades. The fail rate was also lower as well. The student evaluations, the bottom 2 rows are important, 2011 versus 2012. In all of the key CELT questions, there was improvement, but where there was significant improvement was in the feedback, jumping from 42% up to 74%. This is all just part of the POGLE introduction in these lectures. And also the thinking skills. Students appreciated the fact that they could talk with their colleagues in their group about how to thinking about these chemical concepts. So in terms of, we've now run it for 2012, we're running it now for this semester 2013, so we're bedding it down this year. Look, this style seems to suit many students. We still have students sitting in lectures that tend to be loners. One can do it themselves. That's okay, we're not forcing them to do that. As I said before, we're seeing improved final mark outcomes, particularly at the higher end of the grade distribution, the high distinction and distinctions. Constantly fighting this idea that Foundations is the easy course. I tell you, if you have not studied any chemistry and you come into this course, it is not easy. So these are not just gimme distinction and high distinction grades. Students are voting with their feet. Our enrolments for this course have jumped in the last 2 years from 290 up to 430. We are at capacity in Bragg's Lecture Theatre. Next year, we're going to have to go into Scott Theatre, just where our Chem 1 flagship course is being run as well. So combined, we're teaching almost 1,000 students doing level 1 chemistry at the moment. Huge, huge growth in the last 5 years. Extension of the content into 3 semesters. We successfully ran, as I said before, summer semester. I've got there, we had 30 enrolments, 28 passed. 14 of those 30 students are enrolled in our flagship level 2 chemistry courses. These are students going on potentially to majors in chemistry, which they would otherwise not have had the opportunity of doing. So we see this as a way of growing ultimately our third year students, honours students, MPhil students, PhD students. All right, this has been done with the assistance of some, just a small amount of seed funding from the DVCA's office, so very much appreciated. Thanks, Pascal. School of Chemistry and Physics also helped us out, providing some finances here. All of my colleagues have been involved, particularly if they weren't involved with teaching Foundations A or B, they were developing the online module stuff that we've been running in summer, and of course that's more like, I'm happy to go into those sorts of details. We redid the tutorial system, we redid the practical system, we changed absolutely everything about this course. And finally, because it's all about thinking for the future, I'll just leave you some about my thoughts about the future of learning. Nice and handy, wouldn't it? So thank you very much.